guys, welcome or welcome back. I'm Callie and today I'm going to be doing my top 25 books of 2025. I had a great reading year. I read 76 books. Yeah, so I'm doing my top 25 books of 2025. I wanted to start with two books that are actually nonfiction, and I don't rate my nonfiction, but these two books I really loved and they were in my top 25 books, so I'm just gonna add them even though they don't necessarily have a rating. But the first one that I read was Educated by Tara Westover, and it's basically a memoir about how growing up in a Mormon family, a very extreme Mormon family, not to like put labels on all Mormon people, obviously, her family was very religious, and so they basically were like separated from the outside world. And the first time that she ever went to school was when she was in her teens. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, and it's just kind of her story and how she deals with that, and I thought it was really beautiful. I listened to it on audio, and that's like my favorite way to read memoirs. Is I just think that like hearing it from the own person's voice, it puts so much like more emotion behind it that I wouldn't be able to like come up with in my own brain. So yeah, I really loved that one. And then the next one that I read was A Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz, and that one is basically she was in a cult while she was on the show Dawson's Creek, I think it is. I don't know. I haven't actually watched the show. I didn't know who she was, but I saw somebody read the book and I thought that it seemed really interesting, and I read it and I loved it, and I also listened to that one on audio. So yeah. Okay, now to get into my fiction books. The first one was Just Last Night by Vari McFarlane. This is actually the first book that I read in the entire year, and it was my first kind of time dabbling into literary fiction with a subplot of romance rather than like a romance or a thriller or a fantasy. Yeah, but I thought this one was really interesting. I think the only reason that I rated it as it is that I kind of forgot all about it as soon as I was done with it, and I still don't really remember it, which also it has been a year technically since I read it. But this one is about a friend group of 4 people who have been friends for a while, and then something really tragic happens to their friend group, and I would look up trigger warnings for this one. But yeah. The next 3-star book that I had was The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This one I had seen people talk about. I got it during the spring because I thought that it would be good for like vacations that I was going on, but I ended up not reading it until summer, and I read it actually in a reading vlog. The next one that I had, I don't actually have the physical copy of, but it was No Exit by Taylor Adams. That one I read early in the year, and it was pretty twisted, and yeah, so I enjoyed that one. It's kind of about this girl gets, there's a big snowstorm, and so she has to go to this rest stop, and there's just a bunch of like kind of crazy things that happen while she's there, which I love the premise of it, and especially reading it in the winter I really recommend because the setting is just very like winter-esque, and I really enjoyed it. So I rated that one 3 stars. The next book that I read and gave 3 stars was It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. But basically what this one is about is our main character, Jane Jackson, was a TV star when she was younger, and she has kind of like veered away from that. She does like screenwriting now, I think it is, and her co-star, who she was co-stars with, has kind of made a name for himself still in present day, and when her screenplay whatever gets like rejected, she says wait, like get him to write a song for this movie. So she ends up moving to this town and trying to persuade him to do that for her. I don't know. It was interesting, but it was not my favorite book of the year, obviously. Now we're moving on to 4 stars, and a lot of these books I actually don't have. A lot of them I read on Kindle Unlimited over the summer. A lot of thrillers, obviously. So next I have The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read this one for school, but I really loved it. Yeah, not much to say about that one. If you don't, I feel like everybody kind of knows the plot of The Great Gatsby, but yeah, I guess I recommend it. Even as like a non-school book, it was really good. One of the thrillers that I read over the summer that I really enjoyed was The Last Party by A.R. Torr. This one was pretty good, and then I read a couple more of their books and they weren't as good for me, but this one I actually did not guess the plot twist, I don't think. Not that I remember, it's been so long. And then another 4-star that I read this year was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and it was pretty good. It was just a really fast read, like easy read. It kept me guessing. The next one I have, Someone We Know by Shari Lapena. I'm pretty sure I've read every single one of her books now, except for her new one. So she's kind of like my Freida McFadden of the year. Like last year I read every single Freida McFadden book. The next one I have is What Lies Between Us by John Marrs. That one, I listened to over audiobook on my drive to Chicago, and I enjoyed it. It's basically about this daughter has her mom locked up in the attic, and then you kind of learn like why, and it's dual POV. The next one I have is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This one is about our female main character, Jet. Somebody has just attempted to murder her, and so she's trying to piece that together throughout this story. I really enjoyed this one. It was probably my least favorite Holly Jackson book, but yeah. This one was a 4 stars for me, and I'm looking forward to see if she releases a book in the new year because I love her books and I eat them up every single time. The next one I have on this list is His and Hers by Alice Feeney, which I heard is becoming a movie adaptation, and this is like the only Alice Feeney book that I've actually enjoyed. I'm pretty sure I rated Rock, Paper, Scissors and I don't remember what the other one is called that I read. 2 stars. I'm not the biggest fan of Alice Feeney. I don't really know why. I really wish that I was, because everybody else loves her and I'm like a really big thriller reader, so I don't really understand what the disconnect is, but His and Hers was actually really entertaining. The next one I have is The Nightingale, which I swear I rated higher than 4 stars, like a 4.5 or something, but I don't know. Yeah, I love Kristen Hanna. I read 2 of her books this year and I will definitely be reading more. Loved this one so much. I read it over Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure I read it in one day, and it's like a 600-page book almost. This one is about 2 sisters during World War II. They both have very different lives, and you can just kind of see them grow throughout the story and like what happens to them throughout this war, and it's really beautiful. And this December I read Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh, and I gave that one like a 4.5. I swore I gave it a 4.5. Basically it's about our 2 characters go on a flight home to Ireland every single year, and they coincidentally have the same flight for the first like years, and then they start planning it, and then you kind of just, you know, feel like you can guess the rest. But yeah, it's really good and I would recommend picking it up next December. The next one I have on the list is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I read this during the summer and I really enjoyed it. It took me a long time to read, which I feel like was why it kind of wasn't a 5-star for me, just because it was a little bit difficult for me to get through it, but I heard so many good things and I was like, okay, like I feel like I'm gonna like it. I really wanted it to be a 5-star, but it just fell a little bit flat for me. I don't want to say boring because it makes it sound like I didn't like this book, but I think like what made it like this for me is I just went in with such high expectations, like this is gonna be a 5-star, like everybody loves it and I love thrillers, I'm gonna love it, and it just kind of fell a little bit flat for me, but it was really good. It's set in a summer camp, which I was a camp counselor for the past like 3 years, so I thought the premise would be really good for me too, which is another reason I thought it was gonna be a 5-star. But basically, like 10-ish years ago, Bear, a son of the owners of the camp, disappeared in the woods, and now in present day, Barbara, who is the daughter of these owners, goes missing as well, and you kind of just see it. There's so many POVs in this book, like from past and present and different characters, and I thought it was really good. It was really well written too. Recommend it. Then the first Shari Lapena book that I read this year was also a 4-star, and that was Everyone Here Is Lying. Basically, we follow this daughter goes missing, and just how her parents are dealing with that, and like kind of the mystery unraveling of like what happened to this girl. That was my first one that I read, and it was really good. The next one that I read was We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. I don't know how to say his last name. We Used to Live Here. Wow. I still think about this book to this day, as I think a lot of people do, because it kind of just leaves you with like, not like unanswered questions, but like you're kind of just like needing, like, you need more. So basically what happens in this book is, I think it's Eve and Charlie. They just moved into this house and Eve is at home, Charlie is at work. There's a knock on the door one day and it's this guy with his family, and he tells Eve, like, hey, we used to live here. Can I show my kids around? And then, yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting premise, but it was actually so good. I still think about it to this day. Like, I need another book. And then I read The Push by Ashley Audrain. This book was so messed up. But let me tell you, those are the books that I love the most. Like, you will see that. Yeah, I don't even know. Like, okay, I think I rated this a 3-star originally, but when I was going back through my Goodreads of the year and thinking, like, okay, what did I read this year? Like, whatever. And I was like, 3 stars. Like, I think the reason that I gave it a 3 stars because it made me so uncomfortable. Like, this book just has you feeling like gross, kind of, but that's what it wants. So that's like a good thing, I guess. I don't know, but it was just like, it was so interesting and like it did its goal, so I feel like it was really good and I still think about it to this day, which is why I feel like I should rate it higher. It's about this girl who she has a daughter named Violet, and her and her husband welcome their first daughter into the world, Violet, and Blythe kind of just has some like feelings towards her. Like, she wants to love her, but it's just kind of hard for her, I guess. I don't even know. But then when they have another son, when they have their second kid, Sam, she is like instantly like in love with this kid. Like, she loves him, and like she doesn't know why she feels this way about Violet. And yeah. And then there's also some like inserted like other timelines of the female main character, Blythe, her mom and her grandma, and like how they were parented, which I thought was really interesting. I don't even know if I recommend this book because it's so messed up. I still think about it to this day. Like, if you want like a book that's gonna like disturb you, kind of, I guess, then pick this up, but not sure if anybody wants that. Next on this list, I have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This was my second Ashley Poston book that I read. I read The Dead Romantics first last year. Like, this is another one that I still think about because I'm just like, I don't know if I should have rated it higher, but I loved it so much. Basically, our female main character, Clementine, moves into her aunt's apartment that she always said was like magical. And then one day she gets to the apartment and there's this random guy in her apartment, and she's like, what are you doing here? Like, this is my apartment. And yeah, you kind of just see where that takes you, I guess. But yeah, it was really good and I really enjoyed it. The last 4-star book that I had was The Mirror House Girls by Faith Gardner. This one I read on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical copy, but it was like insane. Like, I don't know, I love messed up books. Like, if you can't tell, like, give me like the most disturbing thrillers ever that will like mess with your head for days. And that's what I want to read. And this one was about a cult. And basically, it's this girl moves into this house, and they're called the Mirror House Girls because there's mirrors all over the house. And you just kind of see her like get manipulated into this cult, and her parents and everybody is trying to like tell her, no, like, this is a cult, but she doesn't listen to them, and bad things start to happen. So that is The Mirror House Girls, and I really recommend that book. My last 4 books are all 5 stars. The first one that I read this year was The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I don't really know how to say his last name, and I'm not really gonna try. But yeah, that book was so good. It took me so long to read it. I know that book has been out forever, and I finally read it, and I gave it 5 stars. And I feel like everybody also knows the plot of this one, so I'm not even gonna get into it, but yeah, it was amazing. And then the next one that I have was Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. I adored this book. I laughed, I cried. I read it for school. I got to choose it for school. Basically, you follow 2 girls, Tully and Kate, and it's just kind of like it spans over their lifetime, which I think is so beautiful. Like, let me just show you. Okay, this is like one of the things that I love about this book is that basically every single part is like part 1 the 70s, and then it has like this song that like kind of goes with it, and like from that time period, which I just think is so beautiful, and it just like spans across their entire lifetime. And I was so invested in this book, and I love these characters so much. In the ending, I was sobbing again because that's just what Kristen Hanna wants us to do, I guess. But I absolutely love this book. I still think about it to this day, and yeah, not much else to say, but I loved it. The next one I actually kind of read recently, and that was Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This book was incredible. I felt so angry in the middle of this book, and like if you've read it, you know why, but it's just like that's how the world is, and that's kind of the feelings that you're supposed to get out of this book, because that's just what happens in our world. And it was amazing. It was so beautiful, so well written. I need to read more of his books this year, but basically we have so many POVs in this book, but it wasn't hard for me to keep up with. I did read that in some reviews on Goodreads that people were like kind of struggling with like all the different POVs, but basically Beartown is a hockey town, and there's like a big game coming up with the junior team? Yeah, the junior team has like a big game coming up, and then just things just happen in this town, and you just kind of see how they all deal with that and everything, and it was lovely. Absolutely lovely. I have no notes. I loved it so much. And then for my favorite book of the entire year, that is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I love this book. The romance is just like chef's kiss. I'm obsessed with our male main character in this book so much. Basically, Alice, okay, I just said something, but I don't even think that, like, I think that's kind of a spoiler, so I need to restart. But basically, Alice goes to live with her grandma in her cottage because she needs somebody to take care of her, and there she meets Charles Florrick, who is the older brother of our male main character in Every Summer After. And you don't necessarily need to read Every Summer After before you read this one. I think that this one is a lot better, personally, but yeah, I loved this book so much. That was my top 25 books of 2025. I wanted to do this instead of a like full reading wrap up of every single book that I read this year, just because I feel like I don't want to talk about the books that I didn't enjoy. I just want to like recommend the ones that I actually loved, and that's what I did. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.